simply doing a pros and cons list is not going to give you a decisive outcome, because you've also got to go and experience it. So if you were thinking of moving to a foreign country, go on a holiday there.
For joining us.
You got walls and a roof. Well,
hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Good to have you with us. It's been a bit of a while. Maybe I've missed a week. I don't know. I don't remember. I thought it might be a nice idea if I did a comparison video. You know, we always compare, and I'm not talking about like specifics. Well, I am in a way. I'm talking about the 10 pros of living in Thailand as an expat and the 10 cons of living in Thailand as an expat, compared to, in my case, the 10 pros of living in England against the 10 cons of living in England. So I know they may seem obvious, but I thought it might be quite an interesting comparison, given the fact that my situation is now quite different. So I've had to think a little bit more about some of the pros of being in the UK, because I have to. That's important when you're living here. So there we go. So I'm going to refer to on the phone here because I made some little notes and I don't want to miss anything. So let's just start with probably the most common. I'm going to start with 10 pros of Thailand to start with, and then I'll go to the 10 pros of UK. Then we'll do the cons at the end. So yeah, stay till the end and you'll see some interesting information. So obviously, and I say obviously because I think it really is Thailand, number one pro, it's the low cost of living. I mean, you can live on half or more than half of your costs in the UK and to live here. It costs you so little in terms of cost of living. Now, that's on the basis of being, you know, not Mr. Party Animal out in the bars all day. I'm talking about normal expat living. Okay, so that's number one for me. I think that's a fantastic pro. The other one, very obvious as well, is the weather. You know, we are experiencing warm weather every day. It's always lovely and warm. Some people find that a problem, but I don't. You know, you've got respite from that if you go and jump into a bar or a restaurant or a place or a coffee shop where they've got aircon. So you can always get away from it if it's too excessive. But I think it's a massive pro. The other one is a good pro for some, maybe not for others, but it's an easier social life. It's fairly easy here to go to a bar, and if some other chap is sitting alone, it's not difficult to strike up a conversation with people. Most people are receptive. Now, I'm not saying these become deep friendships, because most of the time they don't, but it's quite an easy thing to go. I mean, if you go into a UK bar, it might not be quite as easy. There's a little bit more skepticism as to why you're talking to me kind of thing. So I would say that's my number 3. Number 4 is the laid back lifestyle. And that totally suits me, because my origins are growing up in Africa. So it's very similar for me in terms of the laid back, make a plan sort of attitude, and things sort of work really well. So for me, that's a very strong positive. Then number 5, which I think is also very obvious here, is street food heaven, which is true. The street food is so delicious and so affordable. And all the time, the many years I've been here, I've never once got food poisoning from street food. So, you know, I just think it's not only is it tasty, I think it's pretty hygienic as well. You know, when you go to a street food vendor that doesn't look particularly, you know, on the mark, you just walk by. You go to somewhere else where perhaps lots of other people are eating at the same time. That kind of gives you a hint as to, yeah, this is good. Of course, number 6 are the friendly locals, polite and welcoming. And I put here as until you act like a prat, because you must have seen the videos where you know, you cause trouble here. It's a very unwise thing to do, because you're not just going to cause trouble with one type person. You will have half the country jump on top of you. I don't know what it is, but all the fights I've seen, you can't just pick a fight with one, because when you pick a fight with one, for what I've seen, as I say, not my experience, but I've seen, the whole of the street jumps onto you. So you're definitely going to lose. Okay, so don't think for a minute this is going to be a fair fight. It isn't. Don't act like a prat. Come and respect their culture, and they are extremely nice. You're nice to someone, they're going to be nice back to you. So I think that's a big pro. Sorry. Number 7 here is the expat network, and it's true. There are loads. It depends where you are, obviously. I'm speaking from Pattaya. well, I say Pattaya, Jomtien, and I don't really like Pattaya Central itself. But there is a massive expat community here. There's a massive expat community in Bangkok, in Hua Hin, in Krabi, in Phuket. There's all these places where you will find a massive expat community. So if you're in some of the major centres, you're going to get that quite easy to get into an expat network somehow. And another very obvious pro is the beautiful scenery, the beaches, the temples, the jungles, the islands. The whole country is stunning. It really is. It's a very, very beautiful and diverse country. And I think it's a massive pro too. You can go out from Pattaya for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and you're in some beautiful countryside. So it's not like you've got to go far. Now, this is a good one for me. Number 9, there's no council tax or TV license, which is an absolute disgrace in the UK. So that's one less daylight robbery we don't have to face living in Thailand. So that's number 9. And a key one for me, and I put it at number 10, but I could have put it much higher. These are not in order of preference, by the way, but the feels like freedom. You feel like you can come here and reinvent yourself. You've got a sense of freedom, like you're not being watched. You're free to do what you want to do. And I think that is a huge pro about living in Thailand. And something I miss, I'll be honest. You don't get that feeling here in the UK. So now let's move on to the top 10 pros of living in the UK. Some you'll agree, some you won't. But the main one, and it's very pertinent to me, is free healthcare. Okay, although the NHS is slow, sure, but it's still free at point of contact. So should you need anything urgently done, you're not paying for it. And that's a biggie. Another pros, of course, is the rule of law. In the fact that you have rights. The one thing you don't have here in Thailand, they're in Thailand, sorry, is as many rights as an expat. You really don't. And you'll only realize that when you run into trouble. You think you do, but you don't. So the rule of law in terms of your personal rights is a massive pro in the UK. You also have a reliable infrastructure on the whole. Roads, power, water, mostly working most of the time. Obviously, roadworks are a problem there. But generally speaking, it's a reliable infrastructure without a doubt. Number 4 is access to benefits. So we have a benefit system in the UK that if things go awry in your life, there is some form of state help that will keep you ticking along. Yes, it's not as good as your salary that you might have received, but it's something there that will help you. And I think that's a massive thing, that you have a safety net. Whatever you're doing in the UK, there is a safety net there for you. Number 5 is the quality of education. Now I hear some of you shouting, oh, it's terrible, it's this, it's that. But remember we're comparing the two between Thailand and the UK. I believe the UK has a far greater standard of education. Even if you take onto the international schools, I still think the UK does better than the international schools, because I think they base it on the American system rather than the UK system. So I stand by that. Education quality is greater. In fact, if I'm honest, the reason we originally moved back to the UK with my children when they were young was education. And I don't regret it, because they're now educated properly. What do you get? Another pro, cultural variety, which is true. Food, music, events from all over the world. That is very true in the UK. Here you've got a certain variety, but it's not, I keep saying in Thailand you've got this certain variety that you think you have, but actually you have more variety in the UK, without a doubt, and I think that's a positive thing. Now, number 7 can be contentious. It depends where you live, okay? And I've put number 7 is it's clean and safe. And on the whole, it does remain relatively orderly. Again, this is dependent on where you live in the UK. Now, where I live, it does feel clean and safe. I won't say where I live, but it is a clean and safe city, and on the whole. So I think it's a positive. Now, that's not to imply that Thailand is not safe. I 100% feel safe when I was in Thailand, 100%. So I've never had a fear of that. So I'm not comparing that against a bad thing in Thailand. Number 8 is the public transport. You've got trains and buses eventually, when they do sometimes turn up, but at least they are there and they do run. Now, comparative to Thailand, again, I don't think we are comparing as such. I'm just saying the 10 positives, because if you're in Bangkok, they've got a superb public transport system and very, very affordable. They've got a great bus system in Thailand as well, which is also fantastic. So yeah, I think they are very comparable. This isn't to say because it's a pro in England that it's a con in Thailand. It isn't. Now, I put number 9, and this is not necessarily my favorite thing, but I hear an awful lot of English expats say this, is that they like the seasons in the UK, that we do actually get seasons. Unfortunately, 90% of those seasons are winter, but yes, we do get seasons, and I put it as a pro because the truth is I'm scratching very hard to find a lot of pros. Okay, so I have to include that. And then actually number 10 is a big one for me, is family and familiarity. Of course I have my family in the UK, so yeah, that's a big thing for me. And I'm sure it is a big thing for many people. And the familiarity of where you've spent 20 odd years, you know the place well. You could say the same in terms of familiarity here in Thailand when you've spent a certain amount of time here. Of course you could argue the same thing. But I think, you always go back to what your roots are, so to speak. So that's my top 10. Okay, so now let's go into the cons side of living in Thailand. Again, I focused on 10. It's not the top 10, it is just 10. Okay, so number 1, and yeah, I agree with this, is the visa stress. Okay, you're always one step away from being told to leave, and that is absolutely true. Even if you're on a long-term visa, you have to do your 90-day reporting. If you fail to do that, there's so many stresses around it. And some people say, oh no, it's easy. I'm not saying it's difficult, it's stressful, because the government changes the rules every 5 seconds. So I don't believe living in Thailand gives you that sense of security. And also, you're never ever going to be one of them. Don't think you are. The other one is the con of dual pricing. And I've seen this a lot in the national parks. There's one price for locals and one price for phalangs. And that's a bit frustrating. It's not as if they are saying, say it's 20 baht for a local, it's 30 baht for a foreigner. No. It's 20 baht for a local and 100 baht for a foreigner. They don't make it a small difference. It's quite a substantial difference. And while I don't disagree with dual pricing, I disagree with the extent of how large the dual pricing, the gap is. And a biggie here, number 3, is the language barrier. Having been in Thailand for a few years, I can only still say a few words, and I kind of get the gist of what people are saying, but there is a massive language barrier. If you want to have a decent chat with somebody, you have to find an English-speaking friend, in my case English, because I can't sit down and have a deep heart-to-heart with a Thai person. I never have been able to, because there's a misunderstanding with the language on both sides. And I even went to go and try and learn Thai, but I guess I wasn't committed enough to pick it all up properly. That's why I say I kind of get the gist of conversations sometimes. But yeah, I think that's quite a thing over time. Language barrier can be quite isolating. So another con, again, depending on your perspective, is corruption. Rules can depend on who you know, and that is absolutely factual. I mean, you look at driving along on a motorbike in Pattaya, and you can see loads of Thai people obviously breaking the law, no helmets, 3 people on a bike, illegal exhaust pipes, but they don't get pulled over. They would rather pull over the phalang because we will get fined immediately and pay the money. Now, my advice on that specific thing is wear a damn helmet. It's not very difficult. Make sure you got the license. I've never been pulled over. In fact, I have, but I have all my stuff, so it's not a problem for me. But it's not just about riding. I think corruption goes right across the board. And that does create a sense of uncertainty because you don't know who you're going to face. One person can make things very smooth for you, another person can make something very difficult for you. So I think that's quite a negative. Number 5 I have here is healthcare costs. Although the Thai medical system is superb, it really is. It's my experience, it totally outdoes NHS by a long way. However, there is a cost to that. And, you talk about having health insurance. Health insurance is very, very good, and I agree, if you don't have existing pre-existing conditions, is what they say, because that means they will find insurance. Look, we know across the world, wherever you go, insurance is not there to help you. They're there to make as much money out of you as they can. So if they can find a way not to pay, they absolutely will. So in my case, because of my actual lymphoma diagnosis, I have a pre-existing condition. I can't get health insurance when I was in Thailand. I couldn't. So when I went to a hospital or thing, I had to pay cash. And that for me was a massive... it's a massive con in the sense that I can't get it. But it's also the guys who are paying for health insurance and have got, good, decent cover. The situation with them is they're paying a lot of money for it. I got quotes and it was very, very expensive. Now, number 6, it depends on who you are, but the extreme heat. So we're sweating becomes a lifestyle, which is true. I think you get used to it. I do. Can't forget where I am. I did. I got pretty used to it. But as I say, if it's really excessive, you can jump inside into an aircon environment or get in front of a fan. I don't see the excessive heat as a massive con, other than if you're out somewhere in the country and you've got no access to cooling yourself down. It can be a bit overwhelming, certainly in the hot season as well. So the other one is number 7 here is unreliable systems. So bureaucracy in Thailand was creative. Let's call it creative. So it's unreliable. You don't know. One day it'll be one rule, the next day it'll be another rule. And that is very unsettling as an expat. Number 8, even if you have a visa, you have limited work rights here in Thailand. You can't pick up side gigs legally. You can't generally do what a Thai person is capable of doing. They won't allow you to do that under their laws. So you generally get work permits for specific jobs, probably from expat roles that you come into Thailand and do. Now, I don't know enough about work permits, but I do know it's extremely strict for working. For example, if many years ago I owned a bar here, you're allowed to own a bar, but you can do nothing in the bar. Nothing. You can't serve a drink. You can't stock bottles. You can't clean a surface. Nothing. Which is kind of very counterproductive. You own a business which you can do nothing in legally. So it's a very unreliable system. Limited work rights as well. Number 9, and I think this is a big one actually, is the transient expat scene. It is a very, very transient scene in Thailand. You meet someone and then they've gone. Some people come for a week, some people come for a month, some people stay a few months, but you're never going to have a consistency. I have a friend who spends 6 months here, 6 months here, 6 months in Germany, 6 months in Thailand. And so for 6 months when I was there, I could see him. And then the other 6 months, it was just text and stuff. So it's very transient. People move through pretty quickly, and that's a bit of a con. And then number 10 is the cultural clashes. Okay, so losing face in Thailand is a big thing. And I think with expats, our cultural differences are quite substantial in the sense that we may be more confrontational than they are. And this is why you see, when you have a confrontation, and a Thai person may go from 0 to 100% in terms of anger very, very quickly. That's not because they get angry quickly. It's because of a build-up, and especially when it comes around to losing face. If they lose face, it's terrible. That's the worst thing. So you've got to be very, very careful and conscious of that part of the cultural differences, and that creates a cultural clash, which some people get used to. I mean, I'm pretty used to it. Other people don't, or people are just ignorant, and that's probably the biggest thing is ignorance. So finally, let's do the top 10 or 10 of British cons living in the UK. British cons. Number 1, the obvious, the high cost of living. It's extortionate. It's absolutely extortionate. And every single thing is going up and up and up all the time. It becomes very difficult to manage your life, unless you're on a massive salary. So I think a lot of people are in abject poverty, not in the sense of the poor people in Thailand, because they're much more poverty in some places. But yeah, for a first world country, I never thought it was a first world country, by the way. Yeah. Number 2, and this is my big bugbear, is the weather misery. Oh, it's awful. It's always grey, it's always cloudy, it's always raining, and the sun comes out sometimes. And when the sun is out in Britain, it is stunning and beautiful. But the problem is it doesn't come out very often. Number 3, constant rules. They've got everything, cameras, fines, forms for everything. They're watching you, go this way, go that way. It's a complete controlled society, and you don't have any form of sense of freedom there at all. You always feel you're being watched, and you've got to adhere to this rule and that rule. You don't feel that sense of freedom. Number 4 is the tax overload. You work hard, and when I was working a couple of years back in UK, I was on a good salary, but I paid around about £1,100 per month in tax. That's a lot of money, and I wasn't in a high tax bracket. I mean, I wasn't like in the top echelons of income either, so you can imagine when they're trying to tax the rich. I think, what? They're taxing everyone. Number 5, again, this is a thing for me, is the overcrowded NHS. While I say it's free, depending on where you are in the country, I suggest bringing a sleeping bag, because you will wait and wait and wait. Unless your arm's hanging off or you're about to die, you're going to suffer for quite a few hours if you went to accident and emergency. One of my personal experiences a few years back, when I had the prostate issues and I had a serious event, I had to wait 3 hours for an ambulance. And unfortunately, that created a lot of tag-ons to the problem that was there, which could have been fixed if they'd come a bit quicker. So the other, number 6, is the work culture. They have a work culture of 37 hours plus per week, which is, I'm not saying 37 hours is a lot. In fact, 37 hours is the minimum. But for all that time you work, you still end up being skint. You've got no money after all that effort. So that's a big one. 7, social isolation. So, and this is true. I lived for 5 years in a flat, and I only ever met one person, and that was by the chance that I bumped into them. People tend to keep to themselves now. It's not like it used to be. People don't talk to neighbors. People don't talk to people. You walk past people, keep your head down, try not to make conversation. And that's a terrible thing. You're amongst all these people, and yet you feel isolated. It's the strangest thing, but it's true. So number 8 I've put here, and this is exactly what I'm doing at the moment, is the negativity and moaning. Okay, and it's a national pastime. It really is. You go to UK and you just talk to anybody in the street, and you're not going to be saying, "Oh, isn't the weather lovely today?" or "Isn't this wonderful?" Everybody will be complaining about something, and everybody's always complaining. And within reason, they have the right to, because it is, to me, a dying society. But yeah, it is a national pastime, and it is a con, because when you're trying to bring yourself up and trying to think of the positives, then they just tear you right down. So yeah, I like that one. So my number 9 here is petty politics, which is very true. Everyone's offended by something. It's the wokeism is in charge, and everyone doesn't want to say anything in case they upset somebody else. We don't have freedom of speech, and that would be another big thing. Although our Prime Minister says we do. We have one of the highest jail sentences for people who say hurty words to people. It's just ridiculous. Everyone's offended. Or even worse, offended on behalf of someone else. I just think it's awful. And then number 10, in this case, it's hard to escape the rat race. And it's true. It feels like you're a hamster on a hamster wheel in the UK. You just continually doing the same thing, and there never seems to be a way out. It just seems to be a continuum of depression, with the occasional splash of sunshine on occasion. So I think, not to make a comparison here, guys, I'm not saying one country is better than the other, but clearly Thailand's better. But what I'm trying to say is to look at the top 10 pros and cons of each of the countries. I think to say that there is no such thing as a utopia. You've just got to weigh up the balance of things, and where do you think the balance works better for you. So this isn't one of those, I think this country's better, although like I did say Thailand is, or that country isn't. I just say, lay out the realities of it. And when you're thinking of moving somewhere, Thailand, England, Philippines, do a list of that. Do yourself a pros and cons list and try and add it up. But simply doing a pros and cons list is not going to give you a decisive outcome, because you've also got to go and experience it. So if you were thinking of moving to a foreign country, go on a holiday there. Not a 1 week special moment holiday. Go for a solid month or something, and try and fit in like an expat, which is very hard to do, because there is a honeymoon period in Southeast Asia. And people will poo-poo me for saying what I'm saying, because I've been well beyond the honeymoon period for a number of years. So my eyes are very open. So like I say, on balance, if the circumstances were different, I would personally be living in Thailand. Unfortunately, my situation is that I'm here in the UK. So there you go, guys. Thanks for listening. If you have got this far, I truly appreciate it. Thanks for all the new subscribers. I welcome you on board. I hope you're going to stay with us, and I'll try and bring some different kind of content as we go forward to maybe, I don't know. Let's see what we do. So guys, thanks so much. and I will see you on the next one.